You know that moment when you ask your child to do something simple, put on their shoes, clean their toys, come to the table, and they act as if you're speaking a completely different language? You repeat yourself once, twice, maybe 3 times, tension rising with every second, and before you even realize it, your voice is louder, your heart is racing, and somehow the whole house feels heavier. You didn't want to yell. You didn't plan to yell, but nothing worked, so yelling felt like the only thing left. And then, of course, the guilt kicks in. If you've ever been there, you're not alone. Every parent has lived this moment, but what they don't tell you is that kids rarely respond to yelling not because they don't care, but because yelling activates the part of their brain that makes it impossible to listen. That's why the real secret to getting kids to listen isn't volume, it's psychology. And once you understand how their brain works, everything changes. Imagine your child actually pausing when you speak, making eye contact, responding calmly, cooperating without the battle. It's not a fantasy. It's not for other parents. It becomes possible the moment you begin communicating the way a child's developing brain understands best. This script is going to show you 3 powerful psychology-backed tricks that make kids listen without yelling, punishing, or repeating yourself endlessly. These aren't harsh methods, they don't require complicated strategies, and they don't rely on bribes or threats. Instead, they use simple psychological principles that speak directly to your child's emotional and cognitive world. Methods used by child psychologists, parenting coaches, and developmental experts because they actually work. But before we go into the first trick, there's something crucial you need to know. Kids don't ignore us on purpose. Their brain is still developing the part responsible for impulse control, emotional regulation, and transitioning from one task to another. When a child is absorbed in something, building a block tower, watching a show, drawing, they are in a state of deep focus. Their brain literally filters out other input. So when you call them and they don't respond, it's not disrespect, it's neurology. That alone removes so much frustration because now the solution becomes clearer. We don't need to get louder, we need to get smarter. The first psychology trick is the connection cue. The reason this trick works so well is because a child's brain listens after they feel a moment of connection. Adults can jump straight into instructions. Kids can't. Their nervous system needs a second of safety and attunement before their brain becomes receptive. You might think connection means a whole emotional conversation, but it can be as simple as getting into their world for a moment. Think of it like warming up the communication engine. When a child feels seen, their defenses drop, and cooperation rises automatically. Here's how the connection cue works in real life. Instead of calling your child from across the room or shouting directions while you're cooking or talking while they're deeply focused, pause, walk over, get down to their eye level, gently place a hand on their shoulder or simply say their name with warmth. Then wait for them to look at you. That eye contact is the cue. It signals to their brain, this is important. Pay attention. Only once you have that connection should you give the instruction. It sounds small, but this single step transforms the entire interaction. Picture a child playing with blocks. You need them to come to dinner. You could yell, "Come eat," repeatedly from the kitchen, or you could walk over, sit next to them for 3 seconds, notice what they're building and say, "Wow, that tower is getting tall. I can't wait to see how you finish it." When you're ready, it's time for dinner. This micro connection does 2 things. It enters their world and it gives their brain space to transition. This increases compliance dramatically because the child doesn't feel controlled, they feel understood. Another powerful part of the connection cue is using the child's name with softness, not urgency. When a child hears their name spoken calmly, it triggers social engagement instead of stress. When spoken sharply, it activates the threat response and shuts down listening. You can test this on yourself. Think about how different it feels when someone says your name kindly versus angrily. Children are even more sensitive to this difference. Parents often say, "But I don't have time for all that." But this trick saves time. Yelling, repeating, bargaining, those take longer. 30 seconds of connection prevents 10 minutes of conflict. As you practice this, your child will start responding faster because their brain begins to associate your presence and tone with cooperation instead of conflict. Another layer of this trick is physical presence. When you stand far away, your child doesn't feel anchored, but when you step near them, their nervous system shifts into a calmer state. Humans regulate through proximity, especially children. That's why teachers move around classrooms when giving instructions. That's why toddlers always listen better when you're right beside them. Presence equals regulation. Regulation equals listening. Once you master this, you'll notice your child becoming more responsive in other situations too. They'll check in with you more. They'll talk to you more. They'll resist less. Because connection isn't just a trick, it's a relationship builder. And children listen better to adults they feel connected to, not adults they feel threatened by. The second psychology trick is the choice sandwich. This trick is pure gold because kids crave autonomy. Their brain is wired to seek control as part of their developmental growth. When kids feel powerless, they resist. When they feel they have a say, even a tiny one, their cooperation skyrockets. The choice sandwich uses a simple formula: instruction plus controlled choice plus positive framing. It gives the child structure while letting them feel capable and independent. Here's how it works. Instead of issuing a command like, "Put on your shoes now," you give the instruction in a gentle, clear way, followed immediately by two acceptable choices. For example, "It's time to put on your shoes. Do you want the red ones or the blue ones today?" The child still has to put on shoes, but now they get to decide how. Their brain shifts from "I don't want to" "I get to choose." This psychological shift is enormous for kids. Think about how you feel when someone tells you exactly what to do with no input. Even as adults, we resist. Now imagine being a child, constantly directed by adults all day. Giving choices restores a sense of control that their brain desperately needs. The key is that both choices lead to cooperation. You don't say, "Do you want to put on your shoes or not?" That invites conflict. You say, "Do you want help with the first shoe, or do you want to try it by yourself?" Or do you want to hop to the door or tiptoe to the door after your shoes are on? The choice sandwich also works because it breaks the instruction into something digestible. Kids don't respond well to long explanations or complicated reasoning. They tune out, but short, structured choices keep their brain engaged. It gives them a job, and when kids feel engaged, they listen. Imagine a child refusing to brush their teeth. You could threaten, yell, or bribe. Or you could say, "It's toothbrushing time. Do you want to brush first, or should I brush first and you finish?" Suddenly, the child is part of the process. They feel like they're making a decision, not being overpowered. And because brushing still happens either way, you maintain boundaries without a power struggle. The genius behind this trick is that it satisfies three psychological needs at once: the need for control, the need for competence, and the need for connection. When kids feel those three things, their brain relaxes into cooperation mode, and the calmer your child is, the easier it becomes for them to listen without resistance. Parents often worry that giving choices means giving too much freedom, but controlled choices are not about spoiling or indulging. They're about guiding behavior while respecting autonomy. You're still the leader. You're just leading with brain-friendly communication. This method also teaches problem-solving skills because your child learns to make decisions within boundaries. Over time, they become more flexible, more responsible, and more confident. There's another reason the choice sandwich works so well. It prevents the automatic no. Kids often say no before they even process what you're asking. It's a reflex. But when you offer two choices immediately after the instruction, the brain shifts to decision-making mode instead of refusal mode. You override the no before it appears. It's brilliant, and it's incredibly effective. And the best part is, kids love it. They feel powerful. They feel respected. They feel like their voice matters. This builds long-term trust, and trust is the foundation of every listening interaction. The third psychology trick is the whisper technique. This final trick you'll learn is one of the most counterintuitive methods parents ever discover. It flips yelling upside down and uses psychology to make your voice irresistible to a child's brain. Instead of raising your voice, you lower it. Instead of intensifying energy, you reduce it. You redirect their attention by activating curiosity. It's a technique used by advanced educators and child behavioral experts, and once you learn how it works, you'll be shocked at how quickly children respond.
When parents get ignored, the natural reaction is to get louder. But here's the psychology behind why yelling doesn't work. A child's nervous system instantly shifts into defense mode when volume spikes. Their brain floods with stress chemicals, which makes it harder, not easier, for them to process instructions. What you say becomes background noise in a storm of emotional overwhelm. They don't hear you better, they hear you less. Now flip the scenario. When you whisper, the child's brain responds completely differently. The volume is low, the tone is soft, and instead of triggering fear, it triggers curiosity. Curiosity is a powerful neurological magnet. It pulls attention. When a child has to lean in, look closer, or pause their activity just to hear you, their entire body enters listening mode automatically. The brain becomes alert, focused, and receptive. The whisper technique isn't simply lowering your voice. It's a complete shift in energy. Here's how it works. Instead of competing with noise, distractions, or emotional intensity, you drop your voice to a gentle whisper and speak slowly. You allow small pauses. You keep your tone warm and calm. You create an emotional pull instead of a push. Children instinctively tune in because humans are wired to respond to soft, intentional voices. Softness signals safety, and safety signals attention. Imagine walking into the living room. Your child is bouncing around, excited, full of energy. You need them to pick up their toys. Instead of matching their energy or overpowering it with your voice, you kneel down, whisper, "Hey, come here for a second. I have something to tell you." Almost every child will stop, even mid-motion, because their brain wants to know what this secret is. Whispering feels like an invitation, not a demand. This works beautifully for transitions, directions, or diffusing intense emotions. Even during tantrums, when you whisper, the contrast between their volume and yours becomes a calming force. Of course, a child mid-meltdown may not respond instantly, but they will begin regulating faster because your whisper signals safety and calm. You're anchoring them without force. Here's another example. It's bedtime, and your child is resisting brushing their teeth. Instead of calling them repeatedly or lecturing about cavities, you walk near them, get close, and whisper, "Hey, guess what? Tonight you get to pick the toothpaste. Which one do you want?" The whisper softens their defensive energy. It shifts their brain into curiosity and reduces resistance. You gain their attention instantly. But the whisper technique gets even better when combined with the first two tricks. Imagine this flow. Connection cue, eye level plus saying their name softly, whisper, choice sandwich. This trio is almost fail-proof because it aligns perfectly with the way a child's brain regulates and processes information. For example, you approach gently, make eye contact, and say, "Liam." They look at you. Then you whisper, "It's time to get dressed. Do you want the dinosaur shirt or the rocket shirt today?" This layering communicates the message in a way their brain naturally embraces. Another advantage of the whisper technique is emotional modeling. Children learn emotional regulation by copying adults. When you whisper, you're teaching your child a non-reactive, calm communication style. Over time, they begin mirroring this back to you and others. They argue less, they express frustration more calmly, they respond with more patience. Whispering is not only a tool for the moment, it becomes a long-term behavioral influence. Some parents worry that whispering will make them sound weak or like they're giving in. But whispering isn't about being passive, it's about being strategic. You aren't removing boundaries, you're delivering them in a way the child can actually absorb. A whisper doesn't mean you're unsure, it means you're confident enough not to rely on force. However, the magic of whispering depends on consistency. At first, your child might be surprised or confused. They might even test your limits. But once the brain learns that your whisper means pay attention, you'll see the response become almost automatic. Children respond to patterns. The more consistently you use this technique, the more effective it becomes. One thing to keep in mind is that whispering works best when paired with calm body language. A whisper and tense posture don't match. A whisper and frustrated energy don't match. Your child reads your entire emotional state, so slow your movements, soften your face, and breathe normally. Your calm is the foundation for their cooperation. Parents who adopt this technique often say something astonishing. It works like magic on adults, too. And they're right. When you whisper, people naturally lean in. They listen deeper. They feel respected. This is because whispering triggers curiosity and connection in the human brain at any age. With children, though, the effect is amplified. Now, imagine combining all three tricks, the connection cue, the choice sandwich, and the whisper technique during some of the biggest daily parenting struggles: morning routines, homework time, grocery store meltdowns, sibling fights, bedtime resistance, and transitions. You'll start noticing something fascinating. The behavior issues you once thought were problems were mostly communication mismatches. When communication changes, the child's response changes. Putting all three psychology tricks together. Let's walk through a full, real-life scenario to see how all three combine effortlessly. Scenario: you need your child to stop playing and get ready to leave the house. Instead of shouting from another room, you walk over quietly and kneel beside them. You watch what they're doing and say softly, "You're building something really cool." That's the connection cue. They look at you, now aware and receptive. Then you shift your voice into a whisper. "It's time to get ready. Come here for a second." That's the whisper technique. They pause, curious. Then you add the choice sandwich. Do you want to put on your shoes first or your jacket first today? You've bypassed resistance, bypassed overwhelm, and bypassed the automatic no. You've made the child feel seen, safe, and capable, all within a few sentences. This is how cooperation is built through psychology, not pressure. Why these tricks work so powerfully? All three techniques share something essential. They acknowledge the child's emotional and neurological reality. Kids don't misbehave because they're bad. They misbehave because they're overwhelmed, overstimulated, underconnected, or struggling with transitions. When communication aligns with their developmental stage, cooperation happens naturally. Children listen when their nervous system is calm, they feel safe, they feel connected, they feel respected, they feel part of the process, and they feel like they are in control of something. These tricks meet all those needs. The connection cue meets the need for safety and presence, the choice sandwich meets the need for autonomy, and the whisper technique meets the need for calm, emotional communication. Together, they create a parenting approach that feels gentle but strong, soft but effective, and nurturing but structured. You become a leader your child wants to follow, not because they fear you, but because they feel understood by you. Transforming everyday parenting with these psychology tricks. As you start using these techniques daily, you'll notice that your home becomes calmer. The power struggles decrease, instructions get followed the first time more often. You end up yelling less, not because you're trying hard not to yell, but because you simply don't need to. You'll suddenly find yourself having more positive interactions with your child, more laughter, more cooperation, more connection. You might even notice an incredible shift in your child. They begin listening faster, they transition more easily, they respond with more patience, they show more independence, they become more emotionally aware, they start whispering back to you when you whisper. These aren't accidental improvements. They're the natural result of building communication on the foundation of psychology and respect. But perhaps the biggest transformation will be within you. You'll feel calmer, more in control, and more confident as a parent. You'll start realizing that you don't need to choose between being gentle and being effective. You can be both. In fact, the most effective parenting strategies are the most emotionally intelligent ones. A final thought for parents. If you've ever felt like your child doesn't listen to you, if you've ever felt frustrated repeating yourself over and over, if you've ever felt guilty after yelling, if you've ever wondered why parenting feels so hard sometimes, you're not alone, and nothing is wrong with you. You just didn't have these psychological tools you needed. Now you do. Children don't listen because of fear. They listen because they feel safe. They listen because they feel connected. They listen because they feel respected.
They listen because their brain is calm enough to absorb what you're saying. And when you use connection, choices, and calm communication, you help their brain enter that receptive state every single time. These 3 psychology tricks don't just make kids listen without yelling, they create a stronger bond between you and your child. They build trust. They build emotional intelligence. They build lifelong communication habits. And they make everyday parenting smoother, easier, and far more joyful. The next time you feel your frustration rising, the next time your child ignores you, the next time you want to yell, pause, breathe, walk over, connect, whisper, offer choices. Watch what happens. You'll see your child change, you'll feel yourself change, and your home will become a calmer, safer, and more loving space than ever before.